Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Watier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Watier, and I'm here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Fantastic, my friend. If you have not been wished a Happy New Year yet, then let us from Fasting for Life do that for you. There's a statute. I think this was was it Seinfeld or maybe Larry David episode, Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they talked about the statute of limitations.
Yeah. I think on both, maybe.
It might have been both.
Yeah. How late is too late to be wished a Happy New Year? Like, quit it. Cut it out, right?
I'm dating myself here. But, so, Happy New Year to you from Fasting for Life. If you missed last week's episode, head back. It's a good one for setting the intention for the beginning of the year and just an incredible 2025 journey. We want to welcome you in to the Fasting for Life podcast. If you're a first-time listener or you're just kind of dipping your toes in who we are and what we do, head back to episode 1, give it a listen. It'll tell you a little bit more about our lexicon, why we do what we do, why we believe fasting is such a powerful tool for weight loss and health and longevity and disease reversal, etc. And we really just took everybody on a journey through December into the beginning of January and really focusing on some of the key metrics and labs and things that we should be focused on in terms of setting the intention for 2025. Now, if you are new to the fasting lifestyle, that comes with a set of typical, I want to say struggles, but hiccups or speed bumps or a learning curve, right? So if you're looking,
question marks.
Yeah, like what ifs or is this okay? Head to the show notes. You can grab one of our free resources. We got the Blueprint to Fasting for Fat Loss. We've got a sleep guide. We've got a journal. Bunch of things there to help you, start the year off right and gain some momentum.
Level up.
And if you're an OG, a long-term listener, we're grateful for you. Thank you so much for being on this fasting journey with us. Currently on day 3 of a fast. I like to start the year. Tommy, you are as well.
I am, yes.
Like to start the year with a substantial commitment. So some years it's a recurring fasting schedule. Some years it's a longer fast. So this year I'm going to be starting with a 5-day minimum.
Okay, nice.
And kind of see where it...
Minimum.
Okay. Kind of see where it goes. My wife and I'm going to butcher this. So please help me.
Okay.
And we talked about this on one of our coaching calls over the last few weeks too. It's like what you do on day 1 of the year, you do the rest of the year. How do you
something like that?
Please land the plane for me.
Yeah, and I think June, one of our OGs, she helped us out here. What you're doing on day 1 of the year, like how you begin the year, is also how you're going to end the year.
There you go.
So focusing, setting that intention, setting that focus early on as the year begins. It sets the stage for what's to come during the year, and you're more likely to be focused on something similar or aimed in a similar direction from when you start versus when you end the year too.
So my wife, going through the holidays, she sent me a message, a text, and it was like, "Hey, just there are no surprises. This is my wish list for New Year's Day."
Okay.
And it was like a list of all the things that she wanted to do on New Year's Day, right? That set the intention for the rest of the year. So it was wake up and have coffee with me, spend some time with the kids, get a Peloton ride in, go ride her horse, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So she's like, no surprises. This is my list of what I want to do to start the year.
It's no joke.
Right? So it's just really, it's funny as we set the intention with a fasting lifestyle. Each year has kind of brought about different challenges, different focuses, different applications. So we're going to record a podcast. We did this last year about what we're going to be focusing on in terms of our foundational habits when it comes to health and weight loss and longevity, et cetera. So my wife and I weren't able to get our typical yearly planning session scheduled before the new year this year due to a late Thanksgiving, and it felt like an early Christmas because it was just compressed.
Yeah.
So we do have a night away planned to put all of that together. So I'm putting together my daily and weekly action steps of how many workouts, what's my walking going to look like? Am I doing focus on longevity metrics like last year based off of Tia's book, Outlive? So we're going to be sharing that coming up in the upcoming future. But today, as we start 2025, we really want to focus on the power of fasting and the power of blood sugar management. If you've listened to the last few episodes, we talk about labs and optimals versus reference ranges and why blood sugar matters and how it's insulin resistance and blood sugar issues are related to 8 of the top 10 reasons of all-cause mortality, right? The reasons why we die are related to our blood sugar and to our lack of blood sugar management, right? So you add in sleep and stress and all this other stuff. So as we move into this year, we really want to focus on what today's episode is going to be about is kind of some of the ways that blood sugar and metabolic dysfunction or weight loss resistance or sleep or stress, things, pain points that show up in our day-to-day life that we just kind of accept as normal that are related to blood sugar and ultimately a healthy weight, healthy body composition, fasting, etc. So today we're going to be talking about brain fog, which we'll uncover here in just a minute, is often dismissed as, oh, I had a poor night of sleep. Insert XYZ reason, right?
I overdid it yesterday, or maybe had a drink, or hey, I'm not sure. I just feel a little more tired today, right?
Yeah. So we'll get into that. So the causes of brain fog, the metabolic health condition, and then and then ultimately why it's a surface level symptom and why we should leverage fasting, food, stress, resiliency, all of these different lifestyle adaptations to help manage it. And you just know that you don't have to live with it. There is a way to feel a higher level of energy and vitality on a day-to-day basis. And the simplest lever to pull is fasting. We are biased, of course, because this is the Fasting for Life podcast, but we will talk about time-restricted eating and what that looks like. We'll break down what brain fog is, etc. I want to give a shout out to Wit000, who gave us some love in our favorite review of the 5-star kind.
Yes.
They discovered the podcast about a month ago, been binge listening every day. That's a lot of our voices, so thank you very much. And I've listened to all 262 episodes.
Wow.
In a month.
Wow.
Like, send us your address. I want to send you something.
All right.
Not in a creepy, weird way. Like, email info@thefasting. Like, that's incredible.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Now we're going to get a bunch of more 5-star reviews. I want something. What are they going to send them?
Yeah.
And more than once, some of them, I like the way fasting is making me feel. My longest fast so far has been 55 hours.
Ooh,
and I was feeling great. Could have kept going. I'm actually real excited to try your challenge on January 29th. Well, we are excited to have you, Wit. So shoot us an email. I'm serious.
Yeah.
We're going to send you something cool because incredible. Way to do the work. Way to join the fasting family. You are now on this journey with us, and just excited to hear your testimony and continue to get to know you, and then ultimately see you inside of the challenge coming up on January 29th. So excited for that, Tommy. All right, let's talk. First one of the year, right? Why don't you guys do it earlier in the year? Well, because there's such thing as a holiday hangover. Not from alcohol, but just the busyness of the holiday, right?
Yeah, and then some of that can lead to some more extended brain fog. When I think of the term brain fog, I can't help but think back to when I first started fasting, and I didn't even realize I had brain fog until I got any glimpse of it kind of subsiding. And it probably happened around like my first 24-hour fast. And then waking up the next day going, my brain feels like it's firing a little bit differently. I feel like I'm not like weighed down mentally, like from the top down. You know that feeling when you wake up and maybe it was a poor night's rest, or maybe the food choices weren't great the day before, or whatever the case may be. It's just a little harder. You just feel a little more sluggish getting up that day. But then, and hopefully that kind of subsides as the day goes on. But sometimes it doesn't. But I feel like there's a lot of times a lot of us can just be living in brain fog that doesn't really subside very much or substantially or for very long. And you can't even really pinpoint how to get rid of it, because it's just kind of this thing that's like, you're just dragging it around like an anchor
It's
that
this
you didn't even know was there.
abstractedness, absent-mindedness, not feeling as sharp, right, as I should be. And you're kind of like, you can't get out of the fog. Like, let's just be real. Be in fog, like really dense fog. You don't know which way.
You don't know where it ends.
If you're not on a road, or if there's not a tree line to follow, or a line, like a yellow line, right, or lights right in front of you. Let's say you're driving at night. It's crazy. You just kind of get you don't even realize.
You'd be spinning around in circles, and like I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah.
So from a medical, like air quotes, diagnosis standpoint, it's very poorly misunderstood, and it manifests in our day to day in a whole host of different ways. But it's a common problem that's accepted to be normal, and then we put these caveats, or we point the blame finger at poor sleep, stress, alcohol, food, travel, daylight savings time,
sure,
all these other things. So what it truly is, it's a state of mild degraded mental ability that includes diverse symptoms such as lack of focus, clarity, recall, and acuity, as well as mental fatigue, right? So that's the formal, put you in a medical diagnosis box.
Okay.
Some docs describe it as like a subacute cognitive decline, meaning it's not sudden, and here's the catch, and not enough to warrant a diagnosis.
Sure.
Okay, well, we don't really want to. Who needs another diagnosis, right? But it can be a precursor to more serious issues like neurodegeneration, and it can be underdiagnosed. Now, we know about the blood sugar type 3 diabetes connection, where Alzheimer's dementia is no longer a plaque issue. It's a blood sugar metabolic dysfunction issue, right? So it's not that you're just getting older, right, and the brain's not as sharp, but it's actually could be signs early on of a more serious cognitive decline. So that's worst case scenario, right? I want to back a few steps away from the ledge and talk about and just rattle them off in ways that brain fog manifests in people's lives. Now, if you go back and listen to episode 1 in our story, Tommy, there's a lot of these things inherently in our, how you would wake up and be like, all right, when am I getting a nap today?
Yeah. Yep. Like from the moment the moment the day started was like, I already feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna need a nap. Yeah.
I'm tired, right? I wake up. Anyone that got a kid, I've got 3 under 8. It's like, yup. Just yup. Any parents out there? I know you can resonate with it, right?
Yeah.
So here's how it shows up, just in kind of little ways in the day-to-day basis. So loss of mental sharpness, mental fatigue, like you're not just fully firing on all cylinders. You're not fully present, right? A little sluggish. Low energy, fatigue, kind of like you're just sluggish, you're walking slower, your brain's not firing quickly, you need to write more things down. You don't really have motivation, or you struggle to exercise, or you have fatigue after exercise. This was a huge one for me.
Yes.
I used to get up, go work out, get ready to go to the clinic, and I would literally nap in the car before I went in to open the office.
Wow. And I mean, so like that feeling right there isn't even, it doesn't even have a mental start for that feeling, but it's the brain fog that leads to the post-exercise just crash like that. Those are related, but you're not necessarily thinking about them in a related way at the time, right?
Nope. No, definitely not. I was like, I'm just disciplined. I'm going to, new year, new me. I'm going to go to the CrossFit Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 a.m. class. Waking up at 4 a.m. sucks. I don't care who you are, okay?
Sure.
Like, you can
may not be good for you.
Yeah, also. And you can make yourself do it, but it was the fatigue after that got me. It's like, wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to feel better, right? So this is when I was, had undiagnosed prediabetes. I had the weight loss resistance. I was carrying the extra weight. around my midsection, but, I could bench press a Buick, doing my macros and, eat less, move more stuff, keto, intermittent fasting, all that. But that exercise piece for me was always difficult. Now I prefer to work out mid-afternoon. I actually feel energized after.
Nice.
So there's
like you should.
Yes, there's a before and after, right? But here's a few other ways that it shows up. Caffeine doesn't provide the perk that it once did, or you're consuming more than usual. So
you're chasing it, but it's not working.
Espresso guy.
Wow. I didn't know they would do that for you. Does that come with a warning label?
Twice a day. This is full-time clinic, 500 patients a week.
Was it working? Was it helping?
No. It would give me like a momentary hit. Like the motivation to, it was like habit bundling. Like if I did it, then I would be able to go back and do the thing, right?
Okay.
But here's some other ways: difficulty with prioritization, managing tasks or multitasking, completing to-do list, trouble with numbers, slow thinking or mental processing speed, haziness. Your thoughts are kind of scattered. Problems with verbal fluency. I know the word, but I can't think of the word.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, somebody help me out with the word.
Right.
That kind
Words are hard. Yeah, they get harder as the brain fog comes up. And like you can really notice a difference in that. And it's literally because of how your fuel is actually being shuttled and being able to be metabolized. And like
you're foreshadowing here.
I know. I know I am.
I know I'm trying to get through the list, but I keep stopping you. Sorry. So we'll get to the reasons why it happens in just a second, right? Yeah. So when you just said it, it's the processing of your energy. It's your energy management system, right? So hormones and insulin and blood sugar, et cetera. So here's some others that were very key in my world. Asked my wife back in the day: irritability, moodiness, mild depression, low motivation, anxiety, fear, confusion. Now we're getting a little bit more down that mental neurodegenerative type conditions, right? Yeah. Forgetfulness, trouble retaining new information. We'll talk about the hippocampus, right? New memories and all that kind of stuff in a minute. And then when you have more stress, you have more brain fog. As the stress goes up, as the noise goes up in my house, I still have these things, especially around Christmas. Grandma and Grandpa went nuts, and we do a no toys thing. Like you get one want, one read, one wear, one need, right?
Okay, I love
Still
that.
do Santa. Santa brings a gift, but never the big gift. Mom and Dad get that, right? So what do you want to ask for Santa?
Give away all the credit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we get. We get the credit.
Right.
But like building stuff on Christmas Day, I remember years ago, like the noise and the instructions, and I'm just like, no, I need to focus to be able to build the freaking Matchbox car racetrack thing. Like I just, or you're in a grocery store, or I remember when we moved, we did some home projects back in the day, and we'd go to the store together, and I have to like critically think through like conversions of cubic feet to bags of mulch. And I was like, no, I need quiet. Like, let me think.
Yeah.
Like, let me just go to the store by myself. These are the ways, and hopefully this is resonating with some of y'all. These are the ways that this brain fog shows up where you just can't function or fire on all cylinders, right?
Or focus. You have a harder time focusing. Like, yeah.
Yeah. 100%. So what are the causes? So can show up in a variety of different ways. But one of the big things ever since we went through the pandemic is, COVID, the coronavirus, long COVID, huge in terms of, and I went through this in the fall. For all y'all complaining about the noises on the podcast, I wish that you never experience the 6 to 8 weeks of long COVID. Yeah. So it was either quit doing the podcast or, put a lozenge in my mouth so I don't cough my head off, right? I still had to still had businesses to run and kids to raise. And so you just did what you did, but
life goes on.
Brain fog was like one of the biggest things that I noticed.
Wow.
and it has to do with the microvascular changes and inflammation and et cetera. But
Mhm.
man, I knew I was better when the brain fog lifted, because I haven't had brain fog for years unless I eat, or, some of the things we'll mention, here, don't sleep for a few nights in a row or whatever it is. So number 2 is the lack of sleep, not enough exercise. Depression can do it. Hormonal changes can do it. Medications can do it. Like sleep aids and pain meds are your top culprits. Sometimes antibiotics,
Yeah.
because of the gut brain connection. Certain medical conditions, and then this category of gut dysbiosis, where you have the gut brain axis and that immune connection. So it's brain fog. It's no difference, that connection there between the gut and brain function, right?
Mhm.
So when you're having, and your immune response that comes from your gut as well. So these are all things that can cause varying degrees of brain fog. Now, let's talk about one category of things that can, the overarching category that can link to brain fog, Tommy, and that's going to be this concept, or this idea that we talk a lot about, which is this link to metabolic health or poor metabolic health, which is this energy utilization, burning storage system that we have with our blood sugar, our insulin, and our hormones.
Well, I think where a good place to start for that would be understanding that our blood-brain barrier controls access to everything that's in the blood and what's going to get into the brain's ecosystem. And the brain is our most metabolically active tissue. So it makes sense when you talk about things like type 3 diabetes being a blood sugar related cognitive decline and neurodegeneration, and then us understanding that brain fog is kind of just a small tiny fractal of that, and that if we think about each occurrence of brain fog, or each day with brain fog being potentially additive, not just a do I have brain fog today, yes or no, but if I can prevent brain fog tomorrow, that will be beneficial to my longevity, my long-term quality of life, my health optimization, and my health span. I think that starts to give us the better like focal point, the better set of reference ranges to like be thinking about this, not just as a minor inconvenience or as like something that's tricky to diagnose, but as something that we'd like to avoid and prevent as often as possible. And we can do that through better metabolic health. And that's the beautiful part of this whole thing, and what we're discovering through more recent research, because brain fog was always kind of that like undefinable thing that a lot of people would talk about, but then there wasn't really much like, what can I do about it? Well, not really sure, but we're going to talk about some levers that are really, really important. But it's helpful to understand where it comes from and why, and just the fact that the GLUT1 transporter in the brain, as blood sugar stays higher over longer periods of time, that GLUT1 transporter is downregulated. And so when it's downregulated, our brain actually has trouble pulling metabolic fuel in a more efficient way. So literally the brain has a harder time grabbing on to fuel so that it can fire properly.
It's
And
because it doesn't have a storage capacity and it can't synthesize it, right?
right.
So like our muscles and our liver have storage and burning capacity, where we need energy, so our body will dump blood sugar into the bloodstream, but the brain doesn't have that ability, even though it uses about 20 to 30% of the glucose energy, right?
Right. Which is crazy. So it's a protective mechanism, because, if you think about neurodegeneration, what happens in diabetic folks is, lower extremities and their feet and their toes, they end up, those extremities are kind of bathing in sugary blood over a long period of time. And so this protective mechanism in the brain that exists so that your brain is not also bathing in sugary cerebrospinal fluid, then you have this downregulation so that it's not flooded with sugar in the same way that your bloodstream is when blood sugar gets high. And so in order for the GLUT1 transporters to get upregulated and start to deliver more metabolic fuel, more sugar, more energy into the brain for proper firing, blood sugar actually has to get into more regulated ranges in the rest of the body first. So it can take time for the blood sugar to decline so that your energy levels in the brain can regulate essentially. And so as that blood sugar comes up going into the brain, then brain fog is coming down. And so I think it's important to kind of understand it from that focal point.
But the catch-22 is that the high levels of blood sugar over long periods of time decrease the uptake by the brain cells. So it's almost
Correct.
like a resistance,
Yeah.
right? Where the brain becomes less effective,
Yeah.
thus leading to reduced energy production and increased oxygen. So it's similar
Absolutely.
with insulin resistance or weight loss resistance. It's like, okay, I'm going to eat less, move more, and I'm going to put myself in a calorie deficit, and my insulin's going to have a certain level of effectiveness, but it's going to be 30% up to 50% less effective if I have poor sleep or stress or some form of insulin resistance. So I need to do even 30% less intake. Well, no, because then your hormones are going to take over and tell your leptin and ghrelin and hunger hormones are going to say, no, you need to eat more. And you get stuck in like this vicious cycle where you can't get off the crazy train.
Right. And you're in high insulin, low calories, which is the perfect storm.
Which is exactly. So what the problem is that the impaired utilization and impaired glucose tolerance then taps into the associated other brain structures where we're going to go next, which is the hippocampus, Tommy. And it's interesting because in some of the ways that this shows up in your day-to-day life, we know that the hippocampus plays a role or is the first place that you'll see things like Alzheimer's and short-term memory loss, disorientation, etc. This is where that short-term memory system kind of shuts down, right? As you then go deeper down the metabolic dysfunction pathway.
Yeah.
So the limbic system is that role where the consolidation of that information from short-term to long-term. This is why dementia patients or older patients, they always remember like 100 years ago, but they can't remember what they had for breakfast.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I started to experience that in my mid-30s. That ain't normal.
Right.
That's not normal. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and these are being increasingly reported too by people as our metabolic health as a country and society and across the world gets worse. These things are kind of becoming more more commonly heard, but shouldn't be accepted, right?
Right. And here's the proof in the research is that cognitive effects of poor metabolic health. So we know that this is a metabolic health issue. It shows up in diminished executive function in individuals with insulin resistance. Folks that have insulin resistance have diminished executive function. They also have poor word recall correlated with higher fasting glucose levels. Right. There's worse verbal memory in people with type 2 diabetes. And we know that there's accelerated cognitive decline with age, especially in those with diabetic or blood sugar or metabolic dysfunction. It's like, whoa. So we're just over here talking about, area under the curve and fasting and losing weight and
losing 5 or 10 pounds,
right?
Yeah.
When we're talking about like hippocampal shrinkage in people without diabetes.
Right.
So what do we do to then combat or avoid brain fog and going down this slippery slope? Just like what do we do to combat insulin resistance and weight loss resistance? What's the biggest levers that we can pull to get the biggest bang for your buck? So then we can experience the brain euphoria is what I'll call it. When the blood sugar comes down and the ketones go up.
Yeah.
The ketones then become a more efficient fuel source. So when blood sugar comes down, your body starts to produce ketones as an alternative fuel source when you're glycogen depleted. The This happens at typically 22 to 24 hours, sometimes 18 in some folks, all the way past into 36, 48, 72 hours. But in that first 24 to 30 hours, typically you'll get this euphoric like whoosh, where like the fog lifts and you're like, whoa,
What is this?
I feel good. This is where maybe you don't sleep that well that first night because you've got more energy. You wake up and you're like, man, I feel good. I want to go take on the world, right?
Yeah.
So fasting allows you to get to that place, and you can actually stay and live in that place. But the problem is then when you stop fasting, you can get back into that icky spot where blood sugar comes back up and insulin and ketones then start to drop, where you kind of get this like, again, like how to navigate going into extending your fast and then breaking your fast really just relates to one of the big categories of how to avoid this brain fog or how to fix it. It's to eat for stable blood sugar and fast for stable blood sugar.
I love that. That intention behind both when you're fasting and when you're eating during your nutritional opportunities is really key because reducing the volatility in your blood sugar reduces the volatility in insulin levels. It also reduces the volatility in those GLUT1 transporters that are helping get fuel into your brain and into your neurons. So if you think about how to make your next decision, okay, I'm going into this fast with this intention. What is it? It's that I want stable blood sugars. I want those most of the time. And if you kind of think about the additive effects of blood sugar volatility and how it's related to cognitive impairment here, potential hippocampal shrinkage over time, which means worsening long-term memory, worsening in memory consolidation from short-term to long-term. It's worth making the next better decision as far as your fasting goes. And if you're just getting into fasting, you haven't reached that point yet, then the cool thing is that, hey, a lot of times for a lot of folks, for me, I wasn't able to experience that at 16 or 18 or really 20 hours, not at the beginning anyway, but later on, as I had worked through some of those layers of long-term insulin resistance, it did get less, like I didn't have to go as long into a fast in order to feel that kind of like, okay, now I feel like the brain fog has essentially lifted or subsided. And the first time when you're kind of going into your next longest fast, you're kind of in uncharted territory. It can be a little bit difficult because you have potentially that metabolic switch that you've never flipped before, where like you said, Scott, you're going from carbohydrate burning and depleting those glycogen levels that you have stored, and then making the transition into a state of ketosis where you're tapping into long-term fat store as well. If you're not used to doing that, it takes a little bit of time to rev up those enzymes in order to properly do that. But then once that's actually been the case, then you're able to see the fuel more efficiently utilized by the brain. That's where the brain fog can come down. So that's kind of the gap. And sometimes that gap can be seen with symptoms of what they call keto flu, which we know with fasting, the quote unquote keto flu doesn't necessarily have to be a week or 2 weeks, like with a ketogenic diet, but it might be a few hours. It might be a couple of days, like you mentioned too. Your first time getting
3 to 4 times you transition through those periods.
Sure. Yeah.
100%. So what I just heard there was the proof's in the pudding. Here's an example. You ever eat lunch and then you feel that after lunch kind of fog?
Yeah, of course. Maybe like nap, like after lunch nap.
The nap attack, right?
Yeah.
So the more you do this, the better the GLUT1's going to be. The receptors in the brain is going to be more efficient or effective. The more consistent you fast, your body's going to get used to flipping this metabolic switch. So you can live more in the 80% of the time you're in this BDNF high, ketone high, blood sugar managed or stable blood sugar area, like we talked about with the blood sugar episode a couple episodes ago. You're just going to feel better, which is going to make the decisions around exercise and sleep and food and relationships and work it's going to make all of that other stuff feel easier because you're going to have more, you're going to be more motivated to do
It's
it. You're not.
motivating. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's the crux of where the success lives for long-term weight loss and health benefits when it comes to a fasting lifestyle. Two other things I do want to mention is when we talk about alcohol and certain medications, so sleep aids and pain meds.
Okay.
So if you're dealing with these things, just make sure that you talk to your medical provider because these things will, moderate drinking also affects the hippocampus, which is directly connected to some of the stuff we've talked about. And then some of the different medications that you might be taking due to other health-related issues can also cause brain fog.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged if you're doing the fasting and you're making better food choices, because you can start fasting without making any food changes and still get this effect, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, for long-term sustainability, you can't be slugging down ultra-processed refined foods and fast food for the rest of your life and just you fast your way out of it.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you can, but that's not probably a long-term strategy.
You'll feel big swings between like, hey, I feel really great over here, and I feel really terrible
crap,
over
now
here.
I feel really crappy.
I'm just going back and
before
forth.
you just kind of used to be like middle of the road.
Steady. Yeah.
Right.
Which can feel a lot better than the big highs and big lows, though.
Right. Right. So and that's why we do the challenges, and that's why we have one coming up at the end of this month, because we walk you through this, in a group setting, private Zooms, like just kind of talking through these things in real time. And obviously, we started this conversation today talking about, the different causes and the different blame finger, right? That we pointed at, well, I didn't eat well yesterday, or, well, the kids had me up last night, or, well, I guess I'm just not hydrated enough, or, well, the reality is the biggest lever we can pull is fasting and making better food choices during our nutrition windows, because ultimately that's going to be the metabolic connection to increase the effectiveness of our energy processing and storing system, which is going to give our brain the ready energy that it needs, so then we can feel better, function better, and ultimately do the things that we know that are going to move the long-term results, rather than, this constant on-off dieting type mentality. So brain fog is one of the things that really I didn't realize was a problem until the problem was gone, I think is how I'm going to word it, Tommy.
Right. Like you didn't even know that there was something going on until it was like, oh, less of that's going on. And the crazy thing is, there is a lot of mounting research that directly shows limiting the number of hours that you spend eating in a day directly reduces the amount of brain fog experience, because you have time to resensitize with those GLUT1 transporters, with metabolic fuel efficiency in the brain and crossing the blood-brain barrier. So basically, availability of fuel to the brain. And the tricky part is that if you put yourself in that situation, Scott, that you just mentioned, you had a crappy night's sleep. Maybe there was a drink or two the night before, and maybe there was not so optimal food choices the day before as well. So you have like a trifecta, right? A perfect storm here. And then all of a sudden, like what feels like the number one thing that you could do in the morning to make yourself feel a little bit better? What feels like the easiest thing to do?
Then or now?
Then, like, but before you, coffee. Okay. What else? Okay. And then, so coffee's a good one. That's good. And what would you put with the coffee potentially if you're just really feeling super sluggish and just like crap?
I don't know.
Maybe some food?
Trying to think back. I'd probably want to combine that with some form of fuel.
Okay. And what would you be most likely to reach for at that point? Would it be protein, or
no? It would be like it would be the savory sweet stuff.
Okay, I'm thinking like pancakes might sound really good at that. Something carby that I could get, that it would just give me some sort of comfort, and I know I would probably feel a little bit less just foggy and sluggish, at least immediately right after.
Yes.
Coffee and some carbs would probably be really tempting right there.
Ooh, that sounds like a show.
Yeah, sure. We rename the show here, Coffee and Carbs. So if I actually reach for that, blood sugar is going to come up, and the volatility of blood sugar and then insulin is going to come up. And so I am going to feel a short-term spike.
Yeah, you're going to get that little peak.
I'm going to overload the system. So even though GLUT1 transporters have been downregulated already, metabolic fuel is not as available to the brain. I'm going to overwhelm the lack of transporters with a huge bolus of blood sugar. And that's going to give me a temporary reprieve from the feelings of extreme brain fog in that situation. But it's going to quickly come back and probably be worse than what it was before.
You're going to have to crash.
Yeah, it's going to be a crash. There's going to be that insulin-related lethargy that comes by afterwards. Yep. So so not being tempted from the by the short-term reprieve and just going, you know what, that was rough. I'm not in an ideal situation here, but if I restrict if I compartmentalize my eating today, or maybe I just burn through most or the whole day today after a perfect storm like that, you're much more likely to actually get more relief from that brain fog in a better, smoother, more sustainable way. That's then going to lead to a better night's sleep and likely changing your directionality over the next couple of days right there.
So what I'm hearing is you need the breakthrough. And the easiest way to get the breakthrough is to pull the fasting lever. Extend your fast, push through, put a plan in place. But once you break through, you're going to go, oh, this feels different.
Right.
I like this. It's not the act of fasting. It's the feeling you get from it. It's not the act of eating. It's the feeling you get from it. It's not the act of drinking caffeine. It's the feeling you get from it. And if we're going to talk long-term sustainability, then we need to tap into those short-term wins that then set us up for the long-term, the ultimate, the long-term result. So if you're looking for guidance and you want some more wins, now is the time, right? We're a little cheeky with New Year's resolutions, but if you're looking for support, you want to set some intentional goals, you want to hit the ground running, head to the show notes, grab the blueprint, grab one of our resources, sign up for the challenge coming up on the 29th. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's the first one of 2025. Tommy, excited for this year. Big things coming from Fasting for Life. If you're new, once again, welcome. Long-term listener, thank you for continuing to support us, and we'll continue to bring the value week in and week out. With that, Tommy, appreciate the conversation as always, sir, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye. So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.